All right, welcome back to Blue by 90. I'm Justin, joined by Tanner today, and it is August 30th. There's a Michigan football game on August 31st. We are
Made it.
one day away, 24 hours until we are right outside the big house, tailgating, crushing North Peak beers, crushing Truly, Twisted Tea, Sun Cruiser, some Woodson whiskey. Shout out, we'll have Joe's Pizza there. It's going to be a hell of a day tomorrow. I cannot wait.
No, man, I'm excited. I'm gonna try some of the fruity drinks. As some folks like to mention, but I'll also try some of that whiskey.
Ooh.
Duality of man. No, man, it's Friday. This is one of those work days where, even if you didn't take PTO today, you're still, you're gazing off. You're thinking about the game and think about that 3-day weekend, all the football food, drinks. No football weather. Still going to be pretty hot. It's going to be like 88 today, 81 tomorrow. Yeah. It'll be nice at during kickoff and as it cools off a little bit at nighttime with the night game. But yeah, man, we've made it. We had football on last night. I watched all of the North Dakota State Colorado game because I am a hater, and I was very intrigued to see what Colorado's revamped defense would look like. It looked better. North Dakota State, though, that's a 2010s NDSU. Carson Wentz is the quarterback. Maybe, they pull through. But, it was great to see football on last night. Minnesota, North Carolina was a great finish. North Carolina State was in a dogfight with Western Carolina. So, Thursday night kickoff, there were no real marquee matchups outside of Minnesota, North Carolina. But, man, it was just great to see football on campus, students there getting after it, like just the best.
It feels like we're back for sure. I think that, yeah, I mean, having football on the TV in like multiple games, flipping through,
multi-view,
like, it felt so good. Felt so good.
I don't know. Do you have YouTube TV? Is that what you use?
Yeah.
Okay. So I put on the multi-view. No, it's not. I put on the multi-view, and I've been a big fan of the multi-view since they introduced it, but also like they don't really know how to curate 4 games. They're not very good at that. But I didn't mess with it because there weren't any games that I wasn't able to watch that I wanted to get on there. But I think you can customize it now. If so, that's a big win. Especially if we're at the tailgate, we could, I know we have Dish. I don't know if we could figure out YouTube TV, but if there's a way to be able to curate the games that you want on there, this could be a great football season. I mean, obviously for home games, we're not going to be able to mess with YouTube TV too much, but when Michigan's on the road and, outside their game slot, being able to just put on, hey, there's SEC, Big Ten, ACC games on, I can customize it. That's a big W. So that may change how we're watching football.
Well, and now there are more teams to watch. If you're a Michigan fan, obviously we're trying to watch Texas this weekend to see how they do. But then just throughout the season, you're trying, watching Ohio State, of course, watching Michigan State, watching USC, watching Oregon. Like, it's crazy to me. 4 weeks from now, we're playing USC. Right? 8 days from now, we're playing Texas. Like, this is pretty crazy. So I think that it's to your point, there's a lot to watch, a lot to have your eyeballs on if you're a Michigan fan. And so, but this week we've got Fresno State coming to town, the Bulldogs coming to town. Before I get into that, I want to talk about Pretzel Bell. We will be there tonight. If you're listening to this on Friday, we'll be there tonight having a live podcast on the corner outside on the patio on the corner of Main and Liberty. So shout out to Pretzel Bell. We will be there doing a little Michigan football trivia. We'll have music. We'll have Hail IPA. We will have Blue by 90 beer on draft at Pretzel Bell. So I will be having a few of those for sure. So come on down, come see us, come hang out. I'm pretty pumped for that. That's what you need. We'll be there every Friday afternoon and evening prepping for our Saturday tailgates. And then, of course, come to the tailgate. We will be in the blue lot, which is the Chrysler Arena lot. And come say hi. We'll have everything that we just talked about. Hail IPA, Blue by 90, a bunch of different North Peak beers. We'll have Sun Cruiser hard vodka tea. We'll have Truly. We'll have a bunch of stuff going on as well as that Woodson whiskey too. So come say hi. But tomorrow we've got Fresno State coming to town. this is not a cupcake. I'm just
No.
going to go ahead and say it. Like, I know that they have had some things happen. Like they lost their head coach. He stepped away not too long ago, who has been, their guy for a long time, right? He's the Nick Saban of Fresno State. But listen, they finished in the top 30 of FBS the last 3 seasons, every single season. So that's no schlub. That is a legitimate, that's way above a lot of Big Ten teams where they ended up. So this is no joke of a team coming to Ann Arbor tomorrow.
No, absolutely. I mean, Jeff Tedford, heck of a coach. Obviously had a nice run at Cal. Had a lot of players. Obviously, Aaron Rodgers, Marshawn Lynch, Javid Best, like Deshaun Jackson. I mean, they always have guys. When he was the head coach at Cal, he's a guy that has been at Fresno State as a coordinator, as a position coach. Took over in 2017. So this kind of is the second time this has happened, unfortunately, because I think Jeff Tedford is one of the most underrated coaches of the last, of the 21st century. I mean, his record at Fresno State, his, he's there 2017 through 19, has to step away, comes back in 2022. They go 10-4 and then 9-4 last year. I mean, it's going to be interesting to see because he is a really good coach, and he's had a lot of success in his career. So I'm going to be interested to see. Tim Skipper is going to be the interim coach. He played at Fresno State, had some overlap when Jeff Tedford was a coordinator there in the late 90s. He's been at Fresno the last few years. He's been all over the place, though, man. He was spent a lot of time at Fresno in the 2000s. Was at Colorado State. Was at Florida under Muschamp, and then our favorite Shark advocate up at Central Michigan. So he's been around the block, man, but he's a Fresno guy, and I'm going to be curious to see how they come out. Jeff Tedford's a really great offensive mind. So what does that look like for them coming into the big house? But man, this defense we've talked about it. What's great is we actually will have some substance to discuss after tomorrow of actual games being played, and we get to see the guys returning, obviously, but then we get to see Jay-Sean Barham, and we get to see Zeke Berry in his 3rd year, and we get to see all these guys play some football. So I'm very excited, but I still just feel like Michigan's going to do their thing. I mean, there's so much talent.
Yeah, there is too much talent on that defensive side of the ball. Fresno State has Mikey Keene at quarterback. He actually started his career in 2021 and 2022 at UCF. Ended up, I think he either lost that job or something went on, but he started 10 games as a freshman, threw 17 touchdowns, but then came in last year for Fresno State. He had a 67% completion percentage, had 24 touchdowns, 10 interceptions. So, this is his junior year, redshirt junior year. I really think that, even though they lost the coach, they've got a lot of stuff going on. That helps them to have, a veteran leader at that quarterback position. So again, this defense for Michigan is going to be ridiculous to go up against, and it's a tall task to ask of him. But they've got some weapons. But yeah, I'm looking. I like where you mentioned like the Zeke Berrys, the Jair Hills of the world. We know what Mason Graham can do, right? We know what a lot of these guys on the defensive side of the ball can do. But where does Jair Hill fit in? Where does Zeke Berry fit in? Where does Jay-Sean Barham fit in? Because people are talking about him like he is an absolute freak. So I'm very excited to see some of those new names on the defensive side of the ball step in. And will they, are they fully ready? Jair Hill hasn't started a game before, right? Zeke Berry hasn't started a game before. So, they need to be physically ready, mentally ready, and everything like that. And then on the offensive side of the ball, obviously there's a lot to be talked about. There is right now we still don't know who the quarterback is. A lot of rumblings over the past 48 hours that Davis Warren has actually jumped Alex Orji and could be coming out as a starter on Saturday. But that's a little crazy because up until 48 hours ago, it was the Alex Orji game, right? Like it was his job to lose coming, from what every insider said around the program, right?
Yeah, I mean, I've talked about this. I follow all the message boards and I subscribe to 247. And yeah, I mean, that was kind of the consensus. Is that Alex Orji was going to be the starter. He had been, not only consistent but explosive, and obviously the ability that he brings running the football was going to be a big add to the offense. But yeah, I mean, you're starting to see, some things about consistency as far as Davis Warren has been more consistent and has put together, more and more good days over the last, however many days of camp. So I like we've talked about, I feel pretty good with either guy. I'm going to defer to Sharon and Kirk Campbell's selection, obviously, because they've forgotten more football than I'll ever know. But like, I think with Davis, I think the upside is, I mean, some of the throws he made in the spring games the last couple of years. I mean, Davis is a guy that might have been a 4-star prospect.
Yeah.
Had he not went through having literal cancer.
Right.
And then COVID and being in California where he didn't get to play his senior year. So he's a guy that, was potentially going to be on the cusp of being a big time prospect coming out of high school. So there's a lot of talent there just because he's a walk-on. I mean, we've seen walk-ons throughout college football be able to make a huge difference at many different schools. And even at quarterback. I mean, Baker Mayfield was a walk-on true freshman balling for Texas Tech in 2013. So, that don't be alarmed because he's a walk-on. And when we've talked to Davis, I mean, we have a podcast with him if you want to go check it out from the spring. Yeah. I mean, cool, calm, collected, hell of a leader, great perspective, right? I mean, you go through leukemia in high school. That puts things in a different stratosphere as far as pressure and winning football games, right?
Everything else seems like, okay, hey, listen, I was fighting for my life as a 16-year-old kid, right? And then it's like, I imagine, I imagine he's still going to be nervous when he first trots out there in front of 110,000 people on Saturday, because there's obviously a ton of pressure of being the Michigan quarterback. But to your point, when you put that into perspective, it's like, I literally beat cancer. I can do whatever, whatever is thrown at me. So I think that, I'm very confident if he's the guy on Saturday. I'm very confident in not only his ability, but just the mental side of it. I also think, let's say, theoretically, if Davis Warren comes out as QB1, that doesn't mean we're not going to see Alex Orji, right? He's going to have packages, and he is too much of a weapon for them to just sit him on the sideline. So I have a good feeling that we'll see both quarterbacks on Saturday. It might not be, the Tim Tebow, Chris Leak 2-quarterback system. But, even last year when you had JJ McCarthy, who's one of the greatest quarterbacks to ever come through Ann Arbor, you saw Alex Orji, right? Because of his running ability. And so I have to imagine that Sherrone Moore and Kirk Campbell are working that into the playbook. And I'm excited about, there's a chance that like Davis Warren is the better quarterback and Alex Orji still rips off a 60-yard run that we're very excited about. And what I love about that is, okay, if you're Texas, then watching game film from, prepping for week 2, how do you game plan for that? You're like, shit, they have 2 guys that can beat us at the quarterback position now.
Yeah, I mean, the thing with that for me, and, obviously the Chris Leak, Tim Tebow stuff, and, as a freshman, Denard would come in for CA, and like you can have success with that. But I am definitely a true subscriber to the statement that if you have 2 quarterbacks, you've got none, right? Like, and I mean, not, like, I don't think it's the worst thing in the world, but like, I would like them to settle on a starter. Because you want that guy to get, into a rhythm, have consistency, not be looking over his shoulder that he's going to get pulled out at any point, right? Like that was an issue back in the late 90s with Tom Brady and Drew Henson, right? So, and, in 2022, I mean, Cade, obviously hasn't been great at Iowa. In 2021, Cade McNamara was fine. Yeah. And that's all he needed to be. But in 2022, it's like, he's looking over the shoulder at JJ, and like, is he forcing things? He's trying to press. So I think the mentality from a quarterback is really tough if you're always looking over your shoulder. So I definitely want a guy to be kind of picked and hey, we're rolling. And unless it's so bad, we've got to make a change, and we're just rolling with one guy, right? Well, but obviously we know Orji's going to play like he did last year.
Yeah, and I like, here's what I'll say about that. Yeah, listen, Davis Warren is not going to be JJ McCarthy in game 1, right? Like we all got to be okay with that. I think that's where the Michigan fan base is struggled over time of just like, we find it took us a long time to get to JJ McCarthy, right? I mean, there are a lot of quarterbacks that we went through that were 75%, 80% there, 85% there, but then we're JJ McCarthy. And even JJ McCarthy had his flaws, right? Obviously. But I don't think I just want to temper the expectations a little bit that we're not probably slinging it around. And, I'll just say it's like they're tough shoes to fill, no matter who it is. It's even if it's Jaden Davis, who is the coveted guy coming in, it's still tough to fill those shoes. So yeah, I think we gotta my point in being there will be mistakes early in the year. Right. You look at what Jalen Milroe did last year for Alabama. We talked about this as well. And it's like Jalen Milroe really struggled to the point of being benched early in the year. By the end of the year, he's playing like one of the top quarterbacks in the country. So you got to give him time. But at the same time, Texas is coming into town week 2. You got to be ready for that as well. So everybody's in a pickle there. Who else are you looking out for on the offensive side of the ball to tomorrow to see what they can do?
Yeah, I mean, I listened to the I'm Go Blog Roundtable yesterday. Definitely go check that out. But
yeah, I love those guys.
The one thing Sam Webb mentioned was that we've heard about Raheem Anderson and Greg Crippen for the last 3 years, right? As guys coming in, I believe this is their 4th year in the program, redshirt juniors. And so in 2022, you go and get Olu Watimi out of the portal, All-American, best center, best interior lineman award winner. I mean, just a stud. I haven't kept up with him at the Seahawks, but I'm assuming he's a monster in the NFL as well. And then, Drake Nugent last year coming in from Stanford did a great job, was kind of the leader of the O-line. So we've kind of expected one of those two to be the heir apparent, and it seems like it's finally their time. And then here comes Dom Jadis, and a guy that was recruited by Jim Harbaugh. Sam mentioned that the staff was like, WTF, when Jim took his commitment and nobody else knew. So this is a Jim Harbaugh guy. Starts out playing defense, but he played both ways in high school, as most kids do. And so he switches to center, I think, in 22. So this will be his 3rd year. So he's had 2 full years of playing in the offensive line, playing guard, playing center. And it just sounds like he's picked it up, and he makes the line calls, and he is dominant. So it seems like one of those scenarios where, if Tim Drevno was the O-line coach, who, by the way, is at Ohio State now, but if Drevno's the O-line coach and, Michigan's starting true freshmen like they were, under Brady Hoke and early in the Harbaugh tenure, where it's like, hey, we have to, even Zach Zenner started as a freshman was like, yeah, he's a stud, but is he ready? This seems like a scenario where, hey, he just beat him out. And those are 2 guys that are extremely capable and probably start on a majority of the Big Ten offensive lines.
Well, that was what I was going to say back to you as you're talking about that. You have if you have 2 quarterbacks, you have none. That's not the same situation for the offensive line.
You want 8. You want 9 if you can.
Exactly. Right. You need I think this is a good thing that we have multiple capable guys at some of these positions. You hear about Gentry versus Evan Link coming on, strong at the end of this fall camp. I think that's where you and I months ago and a lot of other people said, hey, how is this offensive line going to shape up? You've got to replace some legends from Zach Zenner and Trevor Keegan and Ladarius Henderson and Drake Nugent. That line, Trente Jones,
Carson
right?
Barnhart.
Carson Barnhart. Everybody. You lose 6 guys, right? So how is it going to shape up? But I think that I go back to Sherrone Moore is one of the top O-line coaches, and I know he's not technically the O-line coach anymore, but when your head coach is an offensive lineman, was an offensive lineman at Oklahoma, you're going to develop those guys. And I believe in Grant Newsome as well as the run game coordinator. And so I think that, you're seeing guys that maybe normally wouldn't have gotten to a really great point in their fall camp because they weren't as developed. They don't have experience. They're ready to go. And so, we're saying this the Friday before the first game. We could be singing a different tune after we see what happens tomorrow. But I do just like the fact that all of a sudden, you've got 6, 7 options, 8 options on the offensive line where, there's guys battling, and that just, the iron sharpens iron. So I love that.
No, absolutely. And the interior of the line, I mean, with potentially Jadis winning, but outside of him on the guards, you have Josh Preeb, who has played a ton of games for Northwestern, Michigan guy, from the state of Michigan, and then you have Gio El Hadi, another guy from the state of Michigan, who, and we saw him in 2022 when Trevor Keegan was banged up a little bit, but he's a guy that he mentioned it. He turned down bags. Like he turned down offers to stay at Michigan because he's a local kid. He wants to play at Michigan. And we saw what he could do 2 years ago. And you're like, that's a guy that's going to play.
Right.
And there's going to be a good player for Michigan. Miles Hinton, I think we've talked about this a little bit. Just from what I've heard in some of the pressers, like, coming from Stanford to Michigan, it's like, I'm actually at a place that like legitimately cares about football. And not to say that Stanford doesn't, but it's a different level. And the strength and conditioning, he's reworked his body. Like he looks the same, but he's added 20 pounds. Like that's always a good sign when like that guy doesn't look that much bigger, but he's put on 20 pounds. That's a good weight gain for the left tackle. I mean, again, I think there's a world where he can be a day 2 pick because he's a former 5-star. He's got all the tools. His dad was an All-Pro, Pro Bowler for 10 years in the NFL. And then at right tackle, man, yeah, like you said, Evan Link. Sounds like he's kind of, separating himself at that position battle between Andrew Gentry and Jeff Percy. Now, Percy's a guy that we saw against Rutgers in 22.
Right.
Was fine, right? So it's like that's the baseline. Like, obviously, Rutgers is Rutgers, but, they've got some good players. Aaron Lewis was a defensive end who's on this year's team, but for Rutgers, but was, pretty solid a couple years ago, and he held his own when Ryan Hayes was out. So basically, and I bring that name up, but what I'm looking for out of Evan Link is just like Ryan Hayes. Like, like if he could be that, we're looking at. And Bryce mentioned the same thing when we had him on 2021 vibes. Like if this old line's 2021, that's perfect. I'm good. We're good. With the offensive line, with the tight ends, with Max Bredesen, in the run game.
Are you kidding me? That's a Big Ten championship winning offensive line. So. And then I mean, obviously we know Donovan and Kalel will be the duo at running back, but I expect to see Jordan Marshall get some snaps as well. Ben Hall for sure get some snaps. And then at wide receiver, you've got Tyler Morris, you've got Samaj Morgan, we've heard about Fred Moore, Amarion Walker, my guy Peyton O'Leary,
P-Dog.
Bro, he is going to get some snaps on Saturday. So I think, listen, I know that these guys all live together. Davis Warren, Max Bredesen, Peyton O'Leary, Joe Taylor. Joe Taylor's our guy. He's injured right now, but he's a special teams god. That house is going to be balling out on Saturday, and I'm excited for him. So I think that, Peyton, I expect, I think this receiving core is going to surprise some people. That's all I'm going to say. So with that, I let's wrap it up here with some predictions.
Okay.
I mean, I know everyone wants this, like, what's your prediction? What's your prediction? I hate doing this because it's like, it's a total crapshoot. But what do you got for Michigan versus Fresno State for the home opener?
I feel like the last few years of the non-conference have been pretty easy to predict. And last year's non-conference, Michigan didn't really blow anybody out. But I'm going to go 41-10. I think they're going to get a touchdown, maybe late. I think the defense is going to ball out. I think they're going to set up some short fields. Excited to see Samaj return punts. I mean, he's a broken tackle away every single play. So I just feel like they're going to get some shorter fields. They're going to be able to run the ball. And, I'm going to go 41-10. And I'd be, extremely happy with that.
If we score 40 points, I will be very happy because that means the offense is humming. I actually think not that the offense is going to struggle, but I think it's a lot of new faces. It's going to take them a little bit to get into a rhythm. Half this offense and more than half the offense hasn't taken a snap in the big house, like a meaningful starting snap for, ever. So I think it'll take them a couple drives to get going. But I still think, to your point, the defense is going to be dominant. I'm going to go 31-10 there as well. So that's what I've got for a prediction. But either way, Michigan football's back. I cannot wait, man. We are ready to rock. I can feel it. I can't wait to be in the blue lot. Again, shout out to our sponsors, North Peak Brewing, Sun Cruiser, Hard Vodka Tea, Truly, Woodson Whiskey, Joe's Pizza. We appreciate all of you guys. So We'll see you hopefully at Pretzel Bell tonight for a little pregame live pod, trivia, just hanging out, having some beers with the boys, talking football. We'll watch the MSU game tonight as well because Michigan State plays, so we'll have that on outside. And then tomorrow we'll be in the Chrysler Center lot. So come find us. We'll have a big flag. If you can't either see us or hear us, then we're doing something wrong. So come see us. We appreciate you. For us, you can follow us at Blue by 90 on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, at Blue by 90 Podcast on YouTube and blueby90.com. We appreciate you. Go Blue.
Go Blue.